Welcome to the Evening Edit. Let's welcome to the show Fox News contributor Liz Peek and New York Post columnist Jon Levine. Both of you, thanks for joining us. We're going to show a live shot of Trump at his rally in Virginia, talking his agenda to fix America, saying Biden is the worst president ever. Liz Peek, first is breaking news. Speaker Mike Johnson saying Biden's cabinet should consider removing Biden through the 25th Amendment because of Biden's, quote, dangerous decline in full display at that debate last night, Liz. I mean, top Democrats, the media is saying he's got to go. Biden's not stepping aside. He's talking a second debate, Liz. What do you think of this?
Look, I think there's some real concern here, Liz. This is the leader of the free world. And we saw last night that without a teleprompter, he is lost. And really, that is the only difference between what happened on stage last night and what happened at a rally today. With his teleprompter, with someone telling him what to say, when to pause, when to smile, he comes back to life. But when we have a national crisis and it's 9 o'clock at night, what's going to happen, Liz? Is he really going to be able to muster his energies, his faculties, and deal with the problems of this country? I think Mike Johnson is probably over his skis a little bit on this. But my gosh, the idea of him running for 4 more years, it's laughable.
Yeah, so what Liz just said, John, by the way, we've got more breaking news. ABC's 538 and Ipsos polling show voters are saying Biden is in way worse decline than realized. Also, the Hill's YouGov poll of voters, Trump won by a 2-to-1 margin. You know, John, Democrats are in shock. They're saying he's got to go within minutes of the debate opening. John, talk to us about this Biden White House keeping America in the dark, or trying to do that, about Biden's decline. I mean, Biden spent a full week of preparing for this, and he set the debate rules. What do you think?
I've been saying to people all day, what we witnessed last night was Chernobyl. We witnessed a full nuclear meltdown explosion. The lid is off the core, and everyone can see it. And yet you still have people in the Democratic Party, including President Obama just an hour ago, who said, no, everyone has bad debates. We're going to stick with Biden. We're going to keep this going. And they're like these old Soviet officials after Chernobyl that said, no, there's absolutely nothing to see here. That's just 3.6 Rontgen. It's not a big deal. There's no radiation. And meanwhile, the air is glowing and people are melting. But the American people saw it. The core is open. It is not okay. And you're going to continue to see this disconnect where the American people are going to have questions, and you won't just be able to say it's a deep fake or a cheap fake or doctored edited video. But the Democratic Party is just going to circle the wagons. And if you read the New York Times, Thomas Friedman wept in his own words today in his hotel room in Lisbon when he saw the debate. Everyone knows he's got to go, and yet at the same time, the party leaders are going to circle the wagons. And I don't know what's going to happen, but the core is open.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's saying Biden just bombed, and it started right out of the gate within minutes. Watch this. Take a listen.
That's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. What I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare, the idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters. It's just ridiculous. There was no inflation when I became president. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything.
All right, he's just really out of it. You know, Liz, he's out of it. You know, by the way, he said he had no troops dying on his watch. 3 troops died just recently over the past year at the Syrian-Jordan border, and 14 soldiers died in Afghanistan. And to what John is just saying, he just reopened the debacle that dragged his polls down from the beginning, Afghanistan, Liz.
Yeah. Liz, there was one thing he had to accomplish last night. It was to reassure people that at age 81, he was still with it, that he could manage the country's finances, manage the country's nuclear secrets, et cetera. And obviously, that is what he failed to do. And yes, Jonathan's totally right. They're going to circle the wagons. Already they're saying, well, he had a cold and he had a bad debate night. I don't think America buys it. And I think, look, Democrats are in a very tough position here.
Yeah, you know what Liz just said. Here's what people are waking up to, John, and Liz, come in on this too. Biden has been in D.C. in Washington for 50 years. He's the one holding a lock on the Democrat Party. Veteran Democrat operative Paul Begala says anybody's going to say Biden should step down, their career is going to end. So it's been Biden bullying, Biden dominating. Biden's the one who torqued and twisted the Democrat Party to the way far left, and anybody who goes against him, they're shut out. He even tried to ice out the New York Times when they misreported something he didn't like, John.
There's no getting rid of him. Everyone's like, well, someone's got to do something. There's no someone. Maybe President Obama could have done something, but as we just said today, he's backing Biden now. And Jill Biden wants to stay First Lady. Jill Biden wants to stay president, frankly. The whole Biden family is tied into the gravy train of him being in public office, senator, then vice president, and now president. We've seen that on the Hunter Biden hard drive. It all goes away if he stops being president. So they have no interest in just letting him go off quietly into the sunset. They absolutely are encouraging him to run, and I think he can still win.
Liz, it's also the government campaign donation gravy train, too, of spending a lot of taxpayer money to make your constituencies happy. Final word, Liz Peek.
Yeah, look, I think the Biden family is corrupt, and that message really hasn't gotten out. It may never. It doesn't really matter at the end, Liz. He's not a competent president, and the entire world was shocked last night to see what happened. Frankly, I'm shocked they were shocked. Where have they been?
Yeah, we've got reaction. We're getting into it later in the show. Media in Europe, in France, in England, China, and more weighing in. They're shocked, too. Liz Peek, Jon Levine, thanks for joining us.